Good day and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Olamide Olaoba, your grad school advisor. This is my first video on the series of exceptional materials for grad school application. And so today I'll be talking to you on how to write a stellar SOP to secure a fully funded grad school admission. So let's get right into it. So moving forward, I have divided this lecture into three parts. So firstly, I will be discussing what a stellar SOP is, what differentiates a conventional SOP from a stellar statement of purpose. And I will also be talking about the structure of a stellar statement of purpose. And finally, I will discuss how to write an exceptional statement of purpose. First, let's talk about what a stellar SOP is and what differentiates a stellar SOP from a conventional SOP. Let's define what SOP is. A statement of purpose is an intentional essay that is written by a grad school applicant to express interest, preach career goal, and communicate rationale for applying to an academic program. And specifically, a stellar SOP is different from a conventional SOP because a stellar SOP is an exceptionally written stereotype of SOP. So an exceptional SOP must be able to compete among other SOP during an application review process. So a stellar SOP is usually appealing. It contains ingredients that makes the SOP appealing to the selection committee of any university. So, therefore, it is important that all grad school applicants learn how to write an exceptional SOP. That way, securing a fully funded admission would be easy. Let's talk about the structure of a stellar SOP. Here I have divided a typical structure of a stellar SOP into 6 paragraphs. The first paragraph is the paragraph of introduction. The second paragraph is the paragraph where the student discuss his or her research. That is, the research experience is expected to be presented in the second paragraph. Whereas in the third paragraph, the student can present what I call a humble brags. And this is where the student will discuss his or her achievement over the years, especially those that are related to the grad school application. In paragraph 4, the student can present additional skill-based experience and their contribution to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Paragraph 5. The student is expected to express rationale for choosing the specific university that the student is applying to. And again, the rationale, the reason why the student have selected the program. And finally, the conclusion. Let's talk about the introduction paragraph. What is expected of a student or what is expected of a stellar statement of purpose as far as the first paragraph is concerned? Well, again, the first paragraph is the paragraph of introduction, and my advice, my recommendation is that students should start with a hook that introduces the problem they want their career to solve. So here I have specifically written that you should start with the introduction of a problem that you want your career goal or that you want your career or your program to solve. And this may be some diseases such as diabetes, talking about what diabetes is, cancer, or maybe you are in another field like being in transport management or regional planning. You can discuss problems such as road traffic accident, or if you are in the field of physical science like environmental science, you can discuss groundwater pollution. And again, drug abuse is also one of the problem of public health, which can be discussed in the introduction. Next, before I talk about why the problem is important, I want to emphasize that you don't have to teach the selection committee. And that is why I indicated here that don't teach the selection committee. But what you are doing is you are explaining why the problem you are talking about is important. You are explaining why the problem raises concern among the populace. And I'm going to be giving some example here. In the case of disease, you can proceed to discuss the epidemiology, that is, the incidence, the death rate, the mortality rate, incidence rate. You can talk about what is expected of the disease if unabated in the future. These are part of those things that we emphasize or stress the problem or the importance of the problem. In the case of road traffic accident, you can estimate the number of people who die through road traffic accidents or some of other casualties that have been recorded over the year in the case of RTA. For groundwater pollution, for instance, the student could enumerate poor yield of crops, epidemic of a waterborne disease in a particular geographical location. And in the case of drug abuse, the student may discuss the effect of drug abuse on the abuser. Why the problem needs to be solved. This is also part of what should be included in the first paragraph of a stellar SOP. This is a demonstration of exigent need, a demonstration of a critical need. Here you can write a statement that expresses a critical need. And usually, like I have indicated here, you may stress that if the undesirable future outcomes persist, the problem will be undesirable in the populace or among the populace. And that is, if the problem is unabated, if it is unsolved, the, the future holds an undesirable outcomes. This is what you want to prove at this point. And again, you are trying to lay emphasis on the importance and again, a critical need to solve the problem in question. The next thing you want to talk about in your introduction is your career statement. Excuse me. Is your career statement. This may involve your aim to provide solution to a particular problem, especially the problem that had been previously discussed in the introduction, in the first part of the introduction. So you are expected, or you may just go ahead and discuss the aim, which is to provide or confer solution to this problem. Additionally, you can talk about your immediate goal or your overall goal, your future goals. You know, this is part of those things that beautifies or colors a stellar or an exceptional SOP. Finally, under the introduction section, you want to declare your intention to apply for a program. This is one of the pitfall of of a particular, or let me say, conventional SOP. Many SOP that deviate from the norm would not include this declarative statement. It is as simple as writing a sentence that indicates that you as a student, you are applying to a particular program in a particular school. Arguably, the fact that you are applying and you will fill an online form just registered your interest. But it is more specific when you also indicate this interest on your SOP. And like I have mentioned, this is an expression of interest, and you want to do that in clear words, in clear terms. Let's take a look at some of the examples discussed here. For this student, the student identified cancer as the problem he would like his career to solve. And the introduction reads, the pandemic, invasiveness, and low survivability of cancer justify research investment into the general aspect of malignant neoplasm. This is the introduction of the problem. And let's see how the student discussed why the problem is important. Here, the student discussed the epidemiology of cancer generally. I read, although the 5-year relative survival rate of all the types of cancer has increased significantly since 1960, the American Cancer Society estimated that more than 1.8 million new cancer cases will be diagnosed in 2020, with about 1,660 deaths per day in the United States only. On a global scale, death resulting from cancer is only surpassed by heart diseases. This put together with others, such as healthcare expenditure, loss of earnings because of the dismissal from work, continue to raise public concern. Now you can see this yellow coded text indicates the epidemiology of cancer. And everything here is emphasizing how bad cancer is. And this is the discussion of the importance of the problem this student is trying to present. So let's see how the student expressed critical need. I read, it is therefore important to develop novel therapeutic strategies that can mitigate cancer without relapse and increase the overall survival of cancer patients. Again, this is a well crafted statement of need. And next, the student expressed his goal, his overall goal. And let us take a look at what the student wrote. Thus, my goal is to see less of humanity be withered by the severity of cancer through the identification of novel therapeutic strategy, design of prophylactic dietary and lifestyle modification measures, achievable through the continuous acquisition of necessary knowledge and skills while contributing to high-level research, teaching, mentoring, and service as an institution of higher learning. This is also a robust goal that is clearly stated. And finally, the student expressed interest in a particular program in a particular school. Let's take a look at this. To hitch my wagon to a star, I am applying to the doctoral research program of the Department of Cancer Biology at the University of California at San Diego. Let's take a look at another example. This is another example coming from a student who is applying to the Department of Genetics at the prestigious Max Planck Institute in Germany. Look at this problem of research. I read, the problem of research as identified by the student here is clearly the human genetic diseases. We have cornucopia of those. I read, the quality of human lives and the emergence of life-threatening diseases depend on several factors, including exposure to genotoxic agents that causes genetic alteration, among others. Besides chronic toxicity of substances, human genetic diseases may result from hereditary or congenital events. After this clear introduction of problem, the students went ahead to discuss how important this human genetic disease is. Let's take a look at it. Further, there are already developed prophylactics and curative measures for various human genetic diseases. However, these measures are inadequate, cost ineffective of targeting, and lacks efficient delivery method. For instance, several AAV-anchored gene therapy produce variable tissue tropism and off-target effects, which consequently compromises the efficacy of transgene delivery and transduction. In addition, there are limited animal models to recapitulate the clinical scenarios of these human genetic diseases. Again, the applicant was able to discuss why human genetic disease is important, especially focusing on the inefficiency, or the challenges surrounding the AAV accord gene therapy. Let's see how the students discuss or the call for exigent or the call for intervention, which is a statement of critical need. Therefore, it is important to develop new humanized animal models that can mimic clinical scenario and develop robust experimental strategies to solve the current challenges associated with the treatment of various human genetic diseases. Significantly, this will positively impact the quality of human lives and prolong life expectancy. Overall, this area of genetics appealed to my interest. Again, as can be heard, the student was able to demonstrate a critical need or through the statement of intervention written. And again, the student stylishly alluded to why genetics appeal to his interest. And let's take a look at the goal of the student. The overall goal of the student here is stated as follows. Thus, my goal is to create a paradigm shift in the field of gene therapy by enhancing the packaging efficiency, reducing undesirable tissue tropism, and extending the packaging limit of AAV gene vector in order to improve clinical practice. Finally, the student expressed his interest. To achieve this goal, I am applying for a PhD studentship in the Department of Genetics at the prestigious Max Institute, Germany. This is also a wonderfully crafted introduction of a stellar or an exceptional SOP. The second paragraph. This paragraph talks about the research interest and the research experience rather. So this is where you are expected to list your research interest. However, when you discuss your research interest, it is important to take note of some important, I will call that arrangement. So your research at undergrad, postbac, or at master's level are qualified to be stated in paragraph 2. Regardless of the number of research you have done, you want to select at least two best among your previous research. So, and what you want to discuss about each of the research is the problem of the research. Just like we have previously emphasized, you can discuss a particular problem and why the problem is important. And next, you want to talk about the rationale. Rationale is could be the knowledge gap, and this gives reason for conducting your research, and that is research rationale. And here, especially when the rationale is drawn from the knowledge gap, it does mean that there is a gap in knowledge that your research field up or your research field up. So by so doing, there was a knowledge gap and your research became so innovative to fill this knowledge gap. So this is part of those things that constitute an adequate discourse of or an adequate presentation of a research. You also want to discuss the approach you use. If there is innovation at the level of your strategy, methods, or approach, this is appropriate to put this or stress this here. And you want to talk about your major findings. Summarize your findings and finally talk about the significance of your research. In the same paragraph, it is also important to highlight your role in the success of the research. Here you want to talk about the research planning, especially if you helped or if you were actively involved in the planning of the research. It is okay if you are not involved. There are several other things that you can mention or talk about, especially if indeed you were involved in a particular research experiment. If you were actively involved in the experimental procedure, this is also very appropriate to include your role, the role you play during the experiment. It is okay to be a part of those that conduct the experiment. It is not important that you are the sole perpetrator of the experiment. However, there are situations whereby a student may be under close monitoring of a superior. In that regard, you have also played your role in performing the experiment, although under supervision. And regardless of what the situation may be, you can include your role or indicate that you performed the experiment. Eh, An applicant might have contributed to the success of a particular research through data analysis. If you helped in analyzing the experimental results, this is also appropriate to indicate your role. It is also possible that the student contributed to manuscript writing. If you help in putting the manuscript together before publication, it is very critical to indicate this, especially because demonstrating that you've written or put together a manuscript before will strengthen your application. And oftentimes, you would find a manuscript writing or publication as part of the important aspect of a stellar SOP. Finally, you want to state how your research will influence your success in grad school. This is very important. You want to highlight specifically those techniques, the experience you've gathered over time. You want to highlight them and discuss briefly how all this experience or all the techniques you've mastered will influence your success in grad school. Here I have listed techniques such as writing skill. I want to emphasize at this point that writing skill is very important in grad school. This talking about writing, putting manuscript together to writing grants, it is as important as anything, most important. It is one of the most important skill to get as a grad school admission seeker. So, and your SOP is one of those means to communicate your writing skill. It is like your writing sample. If you have not published a manuscript before, your SOP, your writing style will tell a lot about you. Therefore, it is important to master the art of writing. Finally, data analysis is also one of those skills you may include. For instance, if you know how to use R, probably for the analysis of expression of certain genes or for the analysis of single cell RNA sequencing data, it is important to put such skills at this point. So, overall, you want to discuss your research regardless of any level you carry them out, either at undergrad, postbac, or masters. You want to highlight your role in the success of the research and you want to state how your research will influence your success in grad school. Let's take a look at this example. I read, pursuant to my purpose, I have engaged in over 3 years of consistent quality research. Apart from undergraduate research dovetailed by standard research ethics, I acquired substantial experience in maintaining rodent colonies. In those times, we investigated the effect of DNA alkylating agents used as cancer chemotherapy on normal cells. While using an animal model, we established the toxic phenotype associated with the use of cyclophosphamide in brain, liver, kidney, and testes. You can see this student discussed how the research was carried out. And now we are going to be looking at the findings of of the applicants. This is an excerpt of a stellar SOP. Through our finding, we showed the combination of ascorbic acid and Bacillia sepium extract prevented centrilobular vacuolization observed in the liver histology of treated groups. Overall, the results showed that ascorbic acid is a beneficial supplement for cancer patients on chemotherapy. The findings were later published in 2018. So, this is a very good way to present findings and the significance of the findings, as can be deduced from this stellar SOP. The students emphasized the usefulness, the significance of ascorbic acid as a beneficial supplement for cancer patients on chemotherapy. Further, having won the highly competitive Brazilian CAPES scholarship for my MS degree, I continued my research in the highest ranked chemistry program in Brazil, where I had the opportunity to work with recombinant disintegrin domain of botropacina and its mutated variants, expressed by BL21 and DH5 alpha E. coli cells. Again, the students start to talk about another research experience. The study aimed to punctuate the role of glutamate mutation in integrin binding activities of disintegrin domain of snake venom metalloproteinase. Notably, this amino acid is one of the ECD tripeptide that constitutes the non-canonical integrin binding motif peculiar to the class 3 SVMPs. Previously in this process, we generated a mutant variant via site-directed mutagenesis, which replaced the glutamate E by alanine A in the tripeptide ACD. Let's see how the student presented his results. To investigate the differential disintegrin integrin binding in the two variants, we simulated an in vitro focal adhesion model by coating microwells with collagen 1. UVEC cells expressing alpha 2 beta 1 integrins were pretreated separately with each variant before seeding into the coated wells. Upon further treatment and imaging, we found negligible difference in the capacity of the two variants to inhibit adhesion. You can see the results or the findings of the student here is was in negligible findings. There was no significant difference between the mutant and the variant. And finally, the student went on to discuss how all the experience he has gathered over time would influence his adaptability in the program he's applying to. I read, thus, I believe this research experience will boost my quick adaptability in your program. Again, this is a stellar statement of purpose. Let's proceed. Paragraph 3, humble brags. Yeah, it is okay to brag about your achievement in the past, but you want to make sure that what you are bragging about is very related to your application to grad school. Let's take a look at what we have here. There are certain achievements that is expected to be written, or certain achievements that you will not find deficient in a stellar or exceptional SOP. Let's talk about one of them. If you have completed a task previously, it is a big win, especially if it is a scholarly task. So a scholarly task is a task that is very related to academic, and it is something that can be included on your statement of purpose. Your writing skill, like I have mentioned, almost every aspect or every paragraph of the SOP has a place for writing skill. So if you would remember, we discussed writing skill in the previous paragraph, especially when we try to state how the experience the student have gathered over time through the research experience, the manuscript writing would influence the adaptability of the student. Again, if a student have mastered the act of writing and especially have some publication to show for it, it is very appropriate at this point for the student or applicant to indicate or include writing skills in their humble brags. Any competitions won is also appropriate to be included in humble brags. Scholarships, and finally, like I have previously reiterated, publications. Publications. Of course, you would submit your CV, but you may go ahead to emphasize some of your best cited publication or some of your best written publication. Talk about it. It is okay to brag. Sell yourself to the admission committee. And these are part of those things that color your SOP. And this is one big thing you want to do to make sure that your SOP is distinct, different, and outstanding among several others in a particular application review process. So there are other measurable results not included, and the list is endless. Let's take a look at this example. In addition, I have stellar writing experience. The applicant indicated that he has stellar writing experience, which is demonstrated through my high impact publications. Like I mentioned, all you want to do here is brag. Feel free to brag. I call it humble brags. So feel free to brag at this point. Brag about your achievement, brag about your publications, brag about your writing skills, brag about your scholarship, brag about your competition, the competition one, brag about every single thing, especially those that are related to your grad school application. Let's take a look at what these students need again. For instance, in 2020, my review entitled Of Immune Checkpoint Maladies and Remedies, The Throwing of Jabs in the Oncogenic Ring of PDAC was published in BBA Reviewed Cancer, a journal with an IF of 10.68. I want to imagine that a journal of IF of 10.68 in the field of this applicant is a reputable journal. And that is one of the reasons why the students have cited an evidence. Now, I want to point your attention to something. The student made an assertion. He has a stellar writing experience. Yet, the student did not stop at this point, but went on to provide an evidence that he has a stellar writing experience. So, in creating or writing your own exceptional SOP, you don't want to make a vague assertion. You want to make an assertion and provide evidence that support this assertion. When you do this, you are already preparing yourself for grad school. Let's proceed. In the same year, at least four others co-authored were published in journals with highest ranging from 4 to 6, which have accumulated nothing less than 23 citations since their publication in 2020. You can see the students still talk about more and more publications. So I imagine that the student was trying to summarize other publications that he had in recent time. So if you get the style of this writing, you discover that the student wrote about, or let me say, provided details about a single publication and summarized others. This is a very nice approach to that you would find on a stellar SOP. I proceed. Specifically, I am conscious of my ability to motivate any group I belong. This has earned me fruitful writing collaboration over time, including my 2020 review article entitled Rage Signaling in Melanoma Tumors, published in collaboration with two professors in the United States. So it does appear that uh, um, the major brag that this student has at this point is just, sorry, I don't want to use the word just, is writing. So again, like I have mentioned, writing skill is a big deal in grad school, and it is not something to be joked with. It is very, very important to undergo a successful graduate training. So if the student continue to emphasize his skillful writing, it is something encouraging. It is something that will definitely beautify his SOP. And again, I can say that this SOP is an exceptional SOP. It's a stellar SOP. In fact, I have an ongoing writing collaboration with a professor at a university in Poland on genetic code extension. Now, if you look at this statement again, apart from the fact that the student was able to demonstrate that or brag about his writing skill, I want you to take note of something that is also being alluded to. The student alluded to collaboration, which is an evidence of team spirit, an evidence of team working. So not everyone can work with a team. And as far as research is concerned, collaboration is very vital in grad school. These are part of the skills that are cultured or instilled in grad school students. So you'll be working a lot with your peers, with your colleagues, and you will often have a lot of work to be done in group. So the fact that this student or this applicant was able to express his or was able to brag about his achievements, brag about his publication and writing skills, and also alluding to collaboration makes it distinct and outstanding compared to many others that you would find. And again, I stress and emphasize that this type of writing is a stellar SOP. This is what you will definitely find in a stellar and exceptional SOP. Now, finally, the student was able to explain how his writing skills will benefit him in his program. I am therefore certain that this experience and team spirit skills will influence my success in your program. Like I have mentioned, the fact that the student was able to allude to collaboration is part of the strengths of this application material. And again, I want to say it is exceptional. Proceed. You want to make sure that your mentions can support your application indeed. And I have included this to stress that point again. In as much as you want to brag, you want to make sure that you keep everything in the context of academics. You don't want to go beyond the confines of what can be regarded to as scholarship. Paragraph 4. In the fourth paragraph, this is where you include your additional skill-based experience. It may be soft skill, and it may also be hard skill that is highly sorted in your or sorted after in your uh in your field. So you can as well talk about your contribution to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you can provide your successful teamwork experience. Again, this is where this is coming in because team spirit is a soft skill and it is not something usually learned in school, and that is why it is a soft skill. So if you have this skill, you want to honestly indicate that. And I emphasize honestly because a lot of people, especially what you would find on job application, a lot of people indicate that they can multitask. Multitasking is a soft skill. And you would find out that not many people can multitask. So I want to enjoy all students or all applicants. I want to beseech you to include only those soft skills that you can verify or that can be verified from you. Because in no time, admission will be granted to you. You'll be in a particular program, and now you are expected to express those skills, those soft skills you earlier proven to have. So to save yourself from the regrets of lies, of I wouldn't call that lies. Anyway, just for you to save yourself from the stress or unforeseen ramification, I would suggest or recommend that you should only include successful soft skills or soft skills that are very applicable and that you possess, not those you think you possess. Relevant teaching skills is also very important here. This is a skill that is very important to grad school, especially because a lot of grad school students, for instance, in the United States, can be employed in the teaching assistant cadre. So if you have relevant teaching skills and you include this and also indicate how this skill will help you in the program, it will again strengthen your application. And I want to maintain that you will usually find such in a stellar or an exceptional SOP. Public speaking skill is also very important. People that speak very well are usually perceived as very, very intelligent people. And maybe not all cases, but because they can speak. You know, public speaking skill is one of those skills that you want to have as a grad school applicant. And if you know and you are sure that you have this, this is the right place to indicate your public speaking skill. Express yourself, include this, and emphasize that it is particularly a distinct skill for you. It is part of your strength. You know, a point will come in your grad school training where you would often talk about your research. You must not be tired of talking about your research. You must always be excited talking about your research. And that is why public speaking skills is important. You will be attending conferences, you'll be speaking or trained as keynote speakers. So it is therefore important to indicate public speaking skills, especially if you have them. Defendable soft skills. I have mentioned this, and I emphasize defendable skills that you can defend. Finally, you want to talk about your contribution to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is part of the bonus tips, and not many SOP will have this, but try and include that. Now, um, this will take a whole video to talk about. So I'm sure as time goes on, I'll be to make a video on how to present a captivating diversity and diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. So, yeah, and how will this contribute to your application? All the additional skill-based experience and your contribution to DEI, you want to also emphasize or explain or summarily state how all of this will contribute to your application. Let's take a look at this example. In order to contribute my quota to diversity, equity, and inclusion, I have grown a stable platform of proteges of different gender and race across the world. While working as a team, I have continued to motivate, support, and sustain their interest in science. You can see uh, this student was able to open the paragraph by the DEI. So, additionally, I had more than 8 years active experience in teaching Cambridge IGCSE, A-level chemistry and biology, TOEFL, IELTS, and SAT English at more than one college or tutorial in Nigeria. This provided me suitable platforms to cultivate societal values in my students. As you would deduce, the student did not only enumerate his teaching skills, but the student also explained how the teaching skill provided him a platform to cultivate societal norms, values in the students he encountered. So again, the student is or the applicant is doing two things in this sentence or in this section of the paragraph. So learn how to incorporate many things that will beautify your SOP, things that are not common. It is when you have things that are not common and very applicable that you will have a stellar SOP. Deviate from the norm, deviate from the conventional. You want to make sure that your SOP is a stereotype. You want to make sure that your SOP will be preferred to many. This is how to present yourself in print. I call it presentation of oneself in print. That is, without your presence, people can say more about you based on your writing skills. There is an aspect of graphology, uh, which which studies human based on how they write. So that is, I'm just trying to deviate. So the way people cross their T's, dot their I's, can serve as a basis to study them. So, that being said, I am trying to indicate that the strength of your SOP, which is one of the very significant application material that you'll be presenting, tells a lot about your strength, your academic strength, your writing skills, your collaboration skills, your team spirit. So you want to make sure that you indicate only things that matter and that are very distinct. So for this student, the student expressed contribution to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The student talks about his teaching experience and how the teaching experience afforded him an opportunity to cultivate societal values in the student encountered. I proceed. Moreover, I have provided instruction online. For example, within the last trimester of 2019, I uploaded a video teaching on RNA interference. This is still available on my YouTube channel. This experience further showed that I can conveniently provide both in-class and online instruction when need be. So let's take a look at how the students envisage that all these skills will be useful to him if given the opportunity to be trained. in the said school. Therefore, I will not shy away from the opportunity to get involved in these as I look forward to using this skill didactically in your program. This is a fantastically written uh, paragraph. Let us proceed. Why the university? Why the program? So, in this section, you can stroke the ego of the program and the school by talking about the reputation of the program and the reputation of the school. One of those things you can mention is the nature index. By visiting nature.com, you can definitely see the strength of a particular university in terms of the manuscript published in Nature. And this will tell how how their research activity is in that particular school. So all of this will stroke the ego of the university, but then again, it is providing a rationale for you for selecting the university in question or wanting to study in the program in question. The feat of faculty members in academia are noble faculty members. If there are noble faculty members that you have identified through their research or as a keynote speaker in conferences, this is the right place to mention such. The library audience of a particular school is also something that may captivate readers. Many schools hold millions of materials in their library, and if a particular school is exceptionally holding more, you can indicate the library holdings as part of your rationale to applying to a particular university. The alumni network, which is very critical. A lot of career are being advanced because of this alumni network. So if a particular university or program has strong alumni network, it's a very good reason for a particular applicant to select or choose to attend such an institution. The student to faculty ratio tells a lot about the teaching environment of a particular university. So if you have found something enticing about the student to faculty ratio, something competitive when compared to other university, this may also be one of the reasons why you want to attend a particular university. The environment. There are a lot of things to talk about in the environment. Cost of living of a particular environment, location where the school is located or situated may be one of the rationale why you have chosen to study in a particular university. The multicultural environment may be one of the reasons why you have chosen to study in a particular school. The weather, if a particular student is so reactive to a particular type of weather, and it happens that that university is situated where the extreme weather that affect this student is absent, then indicating this will also strengthens the rationale for the students. Finally, you may state the principal investigator you would love to work with at this point, and we proceed. Let's take a look at the example of this paragraph written by a student. According to 2020 Nature Index of top 200 global institutions ranked by their article chairs, Harvard University was ranked first with 1,861 international articles and 696.36 shares between 2015 to 2019. This in addition to your research noble faculty members, alumni, library holdings, and endowment are the reasons I'm helping to be nurtured in your reputable environment. I became particularly more interested after attending the online graduation ceremony of class 2019-2020 Harvard High Impact Cancer Research Program held in March 5, 2021. You can see that this student had a very strong rationale for applying to Harvard. The student talked about nature index, the feat of the faculty in academia, the alumni network, library holdings, endowments, reputable environment. The student still went on to talk about his experience when he attended the graduation ceremony of a particular research program in Harvard. So let's proceed. Thus, it will be a great opportunity for me to be nurtured in such a reputable research environment. Undoubtedly, this will allow me to contribute significantly to research at Harvard, and together move forward to fulfill a common purpose of improving healthcare solutions to diseases such as cancer via high quality research. For that purpose, I would be glad to work with Dr. Olamide Olaoba, whose research in immunotherapy and molecular targeted therapy of non-small cell lung cancer appealed to my interest. You can see that finally the students communicated interest in the research of a faculty member. And I've indicated myself here as the faculty member just to make an example. Let's take a look at another example. This student applied to North Dakota State University. The North Dakota State University is a reputable school I have long desired. That's a good introduction. I mean, a good thing to say. Apart from the fact that NDSU is a major component of Red River Valley Research Corridor, it has also been classified by Carnegie Foundation as a doctoral university, having very high research activity. The university's research expedition is in several areas was listed among the top 100 in 2012. So you can see that in the first example where the student talked about nature index, and in this example where the student is talking about the university's research expedition, the fact that the student was able to identify all these cryptic facts about the university shows that the student or the applicant is research oriented. And again, I want to emphasize that your SOP will say a lot about who you are. Your SOP, you will be judged in print before being called for interview. So it is it is therefore very important to put together a stellar or exceptional SOP. Let's proceed. Further, the praiseworthy feats achieved by most faculties or alumni here are enthralling. For instance, former US Senator McAndrew, former US Congressman Rick Bagg, and former Governor William L. Guy are alumni of NDSU. Again, these students have done a lot of research about NDSU, and it is indeed enthralling. Some NDSU faculty currently are members of the National Academy of Science, and the list is endless. Having assiduously studied the research interests of your faculties, I am most interested in the research of Dr. Olamide Olaoba. Again, the student communicated interest in a particular faculty. Finally, conclusion. In this paragraph, you want to summarize the problem just like you have stated it in paragraph 1. You want to summarize what you have in paragraph 1. Just summarize the problem and reiterate the need to solve the problem, and talk about how important it is for you to get the position you are applying for, and be optimistic in your show of appreciation. Let's take a look at this example. Conclusively, cancer will continue to raise public awareness if death resulting from it remains unhampered. There is a need for sustained efforts in cancer research to improve the survival rate and decrease mortality among cancer patients. It will therefore be a great opportunity for me to be nurtured in such a reputable research environment as the North Dakota State University. Undoubtedly, this will allow me to contribute significantly to research at NDSU and together move forward to fulfill a common purpose of improving healthcare solutions to diseases such as cancer via high quality research. Finally, you want to express optimism, and this look at what the student or applicant has written. I therefore look forward to the favorable consideration of my application. Thank you. This is a well crafted written statement of purpose. To summarize, I want you to know that a stellar SOP is an exceptionally written SOP. It is distinct, outstanding, and appealing to the selection committee. In writing your SOP, especially when discussing the problem, you don't want to teach the selection committee, but you want to explain why the problem is important. And one of those things to do to tell or indicate why the problem is important include, for instance, in the case of diseases, talk about the epidemiology and express why it would be so dangerous if such problem is unattended to. In all mentions throughout your SOP, make sure that everything can support your application indeed. Do not include things that cannot support your application. Do not include achievements that will not support your application. You may state your principal investigator. I mean, if you think you have identified someone you would love to work with, if you have identified a research that aligns with your interests, it is not a bad idea to include the PI. Express interest in this PI. And this will even show that you are very specific. You know what you are looking for in grad school, and you have already identified an interest. And finally, be optimistic in your show of appreciation. And we have come to the end of this discussion. I thank you for your time, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.